Sydney, and I want to be a dark fantasy romance girly, but I'm not. I am really hoping that this series changes that for me. I'm obsessed with Book Talk, and Book Talk is obsessed with the dark fantasy romance genre. And it makes sense that it's on my For You page because I am the target audience. I am a woman in her late 20s. I love reading fantasy. I'll read a romance every once in a while. I am not afraid of spice. I'm not afraid of a lot of spice. But for whatever reason, I am just missing the I can't put this shit down gene, and I'm jealous, okay? I'm jealous of everybody else who has that. However, one series is really catching my eye right now, and that is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, which is the second book in that series. I don't really know much about Fourth Wing other than the fact that it is a dark fantasy and that people love it. So I went ahead and ordered the first book on Amazon, and it is in the mail. It's supposed to be coming tonight, so I can't wait to read it. I'm on page 35, chapter 3, and I already wish that I had filmed myself reading chapter 1. From the time her sister told her to stay away from a certain group of people, I was like, oh, she's going to fall in love with one of them. The moment her sister says, stay away from so and so, I was like, oh, she's gonna screw so and so. Like, she's gonna be with so and so. Like, in terms of the romance, I'm guessing that the love triangle is gonna be more like Hunger Games than Twilight or something. And I'm guessing that the majors in the school, so to speak, are gonna be more like Divergent than Harry Potter or something like that. But I'm holding out hope. And they're also so heavy-handed with like the sexual innuendo and like the expectation for people to have sex is just so interesting. It's I don't know how to feel about it, but I'm still holding out hope. I'm still excited. I'm still vibing. So all right, so I am sitting here with my cat. I am sitting here with a book. I am sitting here with my corn dog and fries. I'm on page 158, and I will say that I do appreciate how much of a slow build the romance elements of this book are, but so much so that I'm wondering if I poorly judged it to be a dark fantasy romance. We'll see. I heard it was spicy though. I heard there's some spice in it, and I mean, she has been very heavy-handed with the fact that the majority of the characters in this book have sex. So far, I still am very dissatisfied with the world building. Like, there's no explanation for the majority of the story of like there's no context really. I still have so many why questions. I still have so many how questions. Yeah, there are just way too many gaps that I feel like I'm supposed to just suspend disbelief, feeling hopeful that it'll be explained, but I don't know. So something better happened. So I am very pleased. I did kind of guess as it was leading up to it, but I didn't expect that when I started reading the book. Um, yeah, so it's really giving me a lot of hope for this story. I also, I don't know, I also just like dragons. I feel like that is like quintessential fantasy for me is like and so I'm excited for this. Okay, so I'm on chapter 27 and that is like page 330 2, I think. Yeah. Getting kind of bored. I still feel like her best friend doesn't have enough personality. Like, I don't know how to describe her. Like, if I was like, oh my gosh, that's something that so-and-so would say, I would come up with nothing for her. I feel like this will they, won't they between the main character and her crush, I don't feel very enemies to lovers. I don't feel that very strongly. I just kind of feel like she has a schoolgirl crush on someone who could take her or leave her. So, yeah, I feel like something really big needs to happen soon, or else I'm just kind of deflating. What? I feel like I have to think. I don't think I just read my new favorite series of all time, or the beginning of it. I don't feel like this book has changed my life. That's rare. It was a high bar to. I do think I read this at the right time in my life. Like, I don't think this is the type of book that, like, I would have only liked when I was 15 or something, or even 19. I think it's hard for me to make a decisive like statement right now because there is just so much emotion jam packed into the last 15%, 10% of the book, really. Like, so I gotta think about it. We're about to talk. Okay, so okay, so I finished the books last night. I had to sit with my feelings a little bit. So we're gonna do the spoiler-free version first, and then I'm gonna do more detailed spoilers and my thoughts about that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So I went into this book blind on purpose. I kind of enjoy when I don't have too many expectations heading into a story. Like, I knew what genre it was and I knew that it was really hyped. I knew people liked it, and that's about it. Initially, when I was reading the book, I was like excited. I love a you know, book that has a map in the cover. I also really like that there were trigger warnings in the beginning. If you are somewhat used to YA fantasy that has romantic elements in it, I do think that some of the plot is going to be somewhat predictable. And I think that I was almost starting to annoy myself with like, oh my gosh, I think this is gonna happen next. Oh my gosh, obviously so-and-so is gonna do this. Because let's be real, like sometimes you go to a certain genre for the reliability and the predictability, so I don't want to hate too much on that. It wasn't so predictable that I didn't enjoy the book, but a lot more things that surprised me, pleasantly surprised me, than I think I was anticipating. So one thing that I didn't particularly love was kind of the characters or character development. I thought that a lot of the characters were acting like NPCs. They seemed like some of the characters were tools instead of people, if that makes sense. Like their purpose wasn't to be a fully fleshed out human being. It was to just like, oh, obviously our character needs someone to talk to at the lunch table type of vibe. I'm also genuinely hoping or assuming that I have missed some details, so like forgive me, but my biggest qualm with this story is that the world building just feels really terrible. Like I feel like it's the type of thing where this author seems to just drop you in, which is not new at all with fantasy, but drops you in and doesn't truly introduce you to the world. It almost felt like it was my first day at some corporate job and everyone was using wild jargon in this big meeting that I was in, and I didn't have any time or any permission to interrupt and go, what the heck does that mean? And like, why are we even talking about this? It's one of those moments where I question if the author actually had a full plan for this world, this universe, these characters. I'm like, what the hell is going on here, and who are we, and why is it like this? I will say, okay, so one of the things that I did like is that I felt like the romance development and the romance period between our main character and her romantic interest was pretty realistic, but not in a non-escapist way. Like you still got some of the like giddy butterflies and like the ooh haha feelings, I guess, the like romantic feelings. But I do really appreciate that that was realistically how crushes develop, how crushes dominate your mind space quite often, how you tend to fall for the idea of someone rather than the person themselves. And I think that that message came across very well. I actually really appreciated that. That felt very refreshing to me. And it felt like it wasn't on accident. It felt like Yaros was like, no, this has a point. The fact that she's falling for this idea, there's a rhyme and a reason for it. I also will comfortably say that I liked Yaros's writing style. I think that she managed to be poetic and somewhat descriptive in a way that wasn't overly flowery. I do like how the author wrote our main character. It's a first person perspective. I like the way that the main character thought. Ugh, I was really relieved to not have the I'm not like other girls energy. I just am so over that, and I'm just so tired of it, and I didn't really get that vibe overtly here, so that was also a relief. Overall, I feel like if you are also trying to dip your toe into dark fantasy romance, adult dark fantasy romance or whatever, if you're coming straight from contemporary romance, I would not start with this. Like if you have had very little to no experience with fantasy, or any type of like dystopian type of storyline, I don't think I would recommend this first. I feel like that's where you should stick with like A Court of Thorns and Roses or something like that. If you are trying to dip your toe into this genre, and you are coming from YA fantasy, adult fantasy, dystopian literature, I think you're going to enjoy it. I feel like this is a good starter. I feel like this could be a part of your starter pack, so to speak. Oh my gosh, I forgot. How could I forget? Okay. I will say I loved the spicy scene or whatever. I feel like, once again, I'm not one for flowery language, if that makes sense. And so how Yaros wrote the sex scene, I was like, okay. Like I enjoyed it. Yeah. I feel like if you like the more, oh, he put his bratwurst in my warm oven type of writing, then you might be clutching your pearls a bit, but if you're like, no, I want to know what he's doing and I want to know what she's saying and I want to know how that feels, then like you'll like it. So yeah, I think I recommend it overall, but it wasn't life changing. I might change my opinion in a couple of days. This is still very fresh for me. Like, I finished it last night. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the more like spoilery opinions. All right, so first up, about the characters. I already said that a lot of them feel like NPCs, but what I really meant is that Rhiannon seems like an NPC, and that bothered me so much because she was supposed to be Violet's friend, you know, like new friend. I also got the hype around Xander, but I'm wanting more of his flaws to show through. I think I'm wanting more from him, and so since, I mean, that's a good feeling to have, like you're craving more. Maybe that's what Yaris's intention was. But this also goes back to me really liking the fact that Yaros was very realistic about Violet developing a crush and falling for Xander in that way. Like, her sister was right. She don't know him. Like, she doesn't know anything about him. She fell for an idea. And that is what made the betrayal later in the book that much more impactful, I guess, because it was like a reality check overall. Like, yeah, you don't know him and he doesn't know you. I feel like early on in my reading, I was like, oh, it'd be fun if like a close friend betrayed Violet in some way, but I thought it was going to be Rhiannon, and I thought that maybe that's why Rhiannon didn't have that much personality, because maybe she was going to be like written out in some way. But the way Dane betrayed her was slimy. It was like not, I was thinking of betrayal in terms of like, oh, damn, this was a A2 Brute type of betrayal, because I just wasn't expecting that. And I feel like it was really gross and invasive and just annoying. Oh, I don't know what this says about me, but I also could not imagine the fucking dragons for the life of me. Like, I feel like what, Tyrion or whatever, I kept imagining him as basically a version or variation of those like Game of Thrones dragons, I guess. But his mate, whose name I cannot pronounce, his mate, I honestly was like, she looked like the Loch Ness monster in my head, and I know she's supposed to be this really powerful being, but I was like, a blue dragon? Like, I struggled with it a lot. All right, genuinely, please tell me if I missed something, because these plot and world gaps are bothering me so much. Like, okay, so first of all, why do humans bond with dragons? Why do dragons waste their time with humans? Who was the first dragon rider? Like, no one talks about that. How did they find out that dragons can bond with humans? How did they find out that need to be bonded with dragons? I don't know. This whole society evolved around this. How? There's just a lot of confusion about how this society is set up for me. Why do you need to do this as 20-year-olds? Also, if dragons live so long, why do they bother to bond with a species that has such a short life expectancy and lifespan as human beings? I know they say that dragons can survive those, you know, bonds being broken or whatever, but they still get tortured. So it's almost like, and then like they're gonna bond with someone who's like 20, 21, maybe. What, you got a good 60 years in them, maybe? I just don't know why dragons would waste their time bonding with humans. Like, what do dragons get out of this? So those are my opinions. I am going to read Iron Flame, but I am having fun. I know it doesn't sound like it. Oh my gosh, I feel like, okay, this is my first book review on this channel, and like, fun fact about me, I'm pretty critical. So yeah, this has been interesting. I'm glad that I'm doing this. I'm glad that I'm trying to dive into this genre a bit more. So I appreciate you hanging out with me. Good luck on your next read. I'll see you soon. Bye.